For the first time at the age of 9, Robert had the intention of making money, so he asked his father, whom we call Poor Father, how he could do it, to which he simply replied that he had to learn how to make more money. Even at that age, Robert realized that such advice wouldn't do him much good. Robert's father was a teacher and made his living that way, but he was always in financial trouble. Seeing the desire to earn money in Robert and Mike, who accompanied him, he advised them to go and talk to Mike's father, whom Robert calls his rich dad. On the day of the meeting, he made them an offer. He would teach them how to make money only if they would work for him every Saturday for 3 hours and pay them 10 cents an hour. But he warned them that they would have to decide quickly, because that was the first thing he would teach them, to know when to make quick decisions, an important skill. After working several Saturdays, Robert felt like a slave, working 3 hours for 10 cents. He was ready to quit, hadn't learned anything, and hadn't even met Mike's father, but Mike was waiting for him. They met on the next work Saturday. When the rich father asked Robert what he had learned from working for such a low wage, Robert complained about his greed and disrespect, and even threatened to quit if he didn't get a raise. He then explained that most people would do exactly the same thing, quit and look for a better paying job. But that didn't solve any problems. He wanted Robert to understand that waiting for a raise wasn't the solution was to make the money work for you. Robert began to understand, but to his surprise, his rich father told him that he was going to stop paying him for his work at the store, with the excuse that if he wanted to make money, he would have to figure out how. Robert and Mike worked for free for 3 weeks until they met Mike's father again. He told them to think about the new lesson he wanted to teach them. To teach them, he asked them to look at the people in the park and think about whether their lives seemed exciting to them, whether they worked hard for money all their lives, clinging to the illusion of job security and looking forward to a 3-week vacation every year and maybe a pension after 45 years. The rich father asked them if this kind of life excited them. He was willing to give them a raise of 25 cents an hour, but Robert and Mike, who were already beginning to understand how it all worked, said no. However, their rich father raised his offer to $1 an hour, and in the face of Robert's resistance, he raised it to $2 an hour. Each time he raised his offer, Robert wanted to accept. Robert knew that $2 an hour would have made him the richest boy in the world, but he still didn't want to accept the generous offer. He offered them $5 an hour again, but they still wouldn't accept. The rich father explained to them that it was good that they didn't have a price, because most people do, because their lives are controlled by fear and greed. Fear of running out of money makes them work hard to earn a paycheck, but once they have it, greed makes them think of all the things they could buy, which makes them need more money, spend more, and work more, which he called the rat race. To go another way, they had to work with him without getting paid, and the first step is to tell yourself the truth. He gave the example of the people who work for him. They feel fear because they don't have money and they react emotionally rather than logically. They don't face their fear and their emotions control their minds. They work to make money in the hope that it will alleviate their fear, but money controls their emotions and they refuse to recognize this truth. Rich Dad urged them to avoid this trap by explaining that being rich does not solve the problem. The boys were learning to think in spite of their emotions. He told them to keep working and that the sooner they stopped needing a paycheck, the easier their adult lives would be. He encouraged them to continue to use their minds, to work for free. Soon his mind would show them ways to make money beyond what he could pay them. They would be able to see things others could not. Once they saw an opportunity, they would see it for a lifetime. The boys did as the rich father advised and soon saw the possibility of setting up a library where children could pay an admission fee and read as many comic books as they wanted. They charged each child 10 cents to enter the library. It was a bargain for the children because each comic cost 10 cents and they could read several in 2 or 3 hours. They averaged about $10 a week for 3 months and paid Mike's sister, whom they hired as a librarian, $1 a week, and allowed her to read the comics for free. After 3 months, they had to close the library, but they learned to make the money work for them even when they were not present. They had already learned the first lesson. The rich don't work for money. Lesson 2: Why financial literacy matters. When people ask Robert where to start getting rich, he gives them the same answer his rich father gave him: if you want to get rich, you have to be financially literate. For example, accounting is a boring subject, but it is absolutely critical to financial success. To make it easier, Mike's father used simple language to teach the kids. One of the first things they learned was the difference between an asset and a liability. If you want to be rich, all you have to do is buy assets. That's all they needed to know. When the rich dad explained it to them, they thought he was joking, because it was so simple. How could adults not understand this? They should not all be rich. The problem is that most people have been educated differently by bankers, financial advisors, and others, so they have to unlearn what they think they know, and so they buy liabilities thinking they are assets. Robert uses simple definitions of assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, and a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. This is an asset's cash flow pattern. The top part of the chart is an income statement, which measures income and expenses. The bottom part is a balance sheet, which is called a balance sheet because it balances assets and liabilities. Assets increase income and put money in your pocket. For example, if you buy a house and rent it out, that's an asset because it puts money in your pocket. And that is the cash flow pattern of a liability. A liability takes money out of your pocket, so if you want to get rich, just avoid them and buy more assets. So you can easily see how people manage their money. Robert says that people in debt often think the solution to their problem is to make more money, but this is not always the solution. It can make things worse. That's why many people who get a sudden windfall, such as an inheritance or a lottery win, spend it quickly. An increase in money only leads to an increase in spending, and what so many people lack is financial education. That's why they may be successful in their careers and still struggle with money. They may have learned how to make money but not how to manage it. People may still be very smart but financially illiterate. They may have learned how to work hard for money but not how to make their money work hard for them. Many people still believe that their house is an asset, but Robert teaches that a house is a liability because it takes money out of your pocket through taxes and other expenses. That doesn't mean you can't buy a house, but make sure you buy assets that generate the cash flow to pay for the house. Robert says that if you want to become wealthy, all you have to do is buy more assets that generate income and keep your liabilities and expenses low. Robert uses the following definition of wealth. Wealth is a person's ability to survive if they stopped working. In other words, if their assets exceed their liabilities.